All right. So welcome everyone to the next session of our FRC workshop series. Tonight, we're going to talk about team funding and how you figure out how you're going to pay for this crazy thing that we all do called FIRST Robotics Competition. We have a few different people on the workshop tonight. We have Sam, who's coming to you live from Perth. I believe her team is 4788. We have Andrew coming to you from the southern part of New South, well, I guess it's just the southern part of Sydney, kind of. He's from Wollongong. He's from Project Bucephalus, 5985. We have Mike from the heart of Sydney, coming from 3132, and John Heathcote, who is from Tasmania, way down in the southern part of the country, and he is from Team 8282. So welcome all of you. I'm hoping we can have a really great discussion about basically how you guys pay for this. So I thought what we could do is just have a little chat from each of you about what your team does to fund itself. And then we'll take some questions and see how it goes. So who wants to start?
I can start. I'll start if you like.
Thanks, John.
Mike will start, but I'll have a go. So we're Team 8282 and the 2019-20 season, which didn't obviously go quite as planned, was our rookie season. Having said that, we've been an FTC team for 7 years. We've been through the funding for funding an FTC team and getting that team to Sydney every year for the last 7 years. So our first venture into FRC, Team 8282, was a mad scramble to raise funding for that. Our biggest funding source was through sponsorship. We applied to lots of local businesses, business contacts that myself and other people have in the engineering industry, and we got some major sponsors on board via business contacts. So we got the team wrote a letter explaining what we were doing, sent this off. We had probably about a 30% success rate, so maybe 60 letters went out, and yeah, not everybody replied. Some replied and said no, and others replied and were all well on board with it. And that's with the majority of our funding. The other was plenty of sausage sizzles. We do an awful lot of sausage sizzles.
John, you also got a grant from the Argosy Foundation, didn't you?
We did, yes.
Could you maybe chat about that just a little bit to tell people how that worked?
So we got the rookie grant through first, and we got the grant through yourselves to help fund the registration fees, which was fantastic. So our first year registration was fully funded via grants. The process is fairly straightforward. We're about to do the lessons learned to complete the process so that we can get the next year of funding for our first veteran year for the extra $2,000 of registration fee. So all our costs have been on buying extra equipment, buying materials to build a dummy field, buying lots and lots of plywood to build a dummy field, and transport costs. So obviously in Tasmania, we don't have a regional, we have to get to Sydney. There's no way of doing a small, there's only 2 teams in Tasmania. So we looked at sharing the cost of getting robots across, and we were fortunate to find somebody who had a van and was going to take it on the ferry with 2 robots from Tasmania across on the Spirit of Tasmania and drive all the way up to Sydney. So he planned on a 10-hour, 11-hour drive from Melbourne to Sydney, but obviously that didn't happen. And then the rest is flights and accommodation. The majority of our costs have been in actually getting to the competition. Or our budgeted costs were, anyway. So we've actually spent that yet.
Right. And John, are you associated with a school, or what's the affiliation of your team?
No, we're a community group. Always have been. We started by a 15-year-old 7 or 8 years ago. He wanted to do robots, and he said, "Dad, you're an engineer, and you can be mentor." And that's how it all started.
All right, thank you. All right, who's next?
I'll put my hand up if.
Great, Andrew.
Okay, yeah, so we're Project Bucephalus. We're a community team as well. We had our roots in FLL. So we started doing FLL back in 2010 and started up FRC for Stronghold back in 2016. We sort of have a slightly unusual way of doing things. Probably 80 to 90% of our team income comes from running robotics classes, school holiday workshops or after school workshops. So we do have some sponsors, but mostly they provide things that we aren't able to secure, like a location or opportunities. So we have two ways to be part of our team. You either give us a certain number of hours a week or after school and in the holidays, and it costs you nothing to do FRC with us, or the team parents pay, I think it's an $800 levy if they don't have the time to do that. And that covers everything, but not any trips to Houston if such a thing happens. We've been running on that model from the beginning. These classes were kicked off to support the FLL team. So we sort of just made them bigger, better, and more extensive when we started FRC. Yeah, that's pretty much how we do things.
So Andrew, about how many of these classes are you running every week?
Well, before COVID hit, we were seeing 250 kids a week in the after school classes. I think we're running about 12 classes a week. So we've got 30 kids in the team. So 2 or 3 at every one of these classes and we're covered. It's a running gag with the parents. They don't have to pay with money. It's like child labor / character building. The parents will get a giggle out of that. And we teach the kids how to teach, so they won't get just dumped in the deep end. They'll start, there's a progression in how they learn. Some of them get to the point where they're up the front running the class themselves. Still got an adult in the room, mind you. But others just like sitting back and helping the little kids. We've actually got, again, I think something like 92% of our recruits are kids who have come through that program as students.
Awesome. We have a question already that's come in for John. And it's, how big is the town or city that your team is set up in?
We're in Launceston in Tasmania. There's 100,000 people or so in the population of Greater Launceston. Our team is only 7 students and 2 mentors.
Okay, Sam, would you like to go next?
Yep, cool. Okay, so my team, 4788, we are a university-based team. So we get a lot of our funding and our build space from the university themselves. We also get some sponsorship from places like Department of Defense, as well as BAE Systems. And we also run Robo Academies, which are robotics workshops with the EV3 kits, but we only run them in the school holidays. So we try and run them most school holidays, but we don't typically get every single one, depending on, we don't run them during build season is typically our rule because the kids get too burnt out. But yeah, that's where most of our money and our time and our build space comes from in the end.
About how many mentors do you have out there?
So we run a system where we have about 4 lead / paid mentors. They're employed by the university. And then we have about 10 or so, plus or minus each time. They don't all come into every session, obviously, volunteer mentors. And most of these mentors are brought up through the system of, they did FRC when they were students, and then now they just want to keep going and help out the new students.
Okay, so the mentors who are paid through the university, is that money that the team has to raise, or is that an in-kind contribution basically from the uni?
So when we do our budgets, we do include the wages that the mentors are paid, but that money is all covered by Curtin. So Curtin covers quite a lot of our funding, but we have to commit to getting some sponsorship and some funding through Robo Academies.
Okay. All right, Mike, how about you?
So we're also based at a university, but we consider ourselves a community-based team, and the university is sort of just another sponsor who gives us some space and gives us a little bit of cash and access to some services. They do all of our accounting for us, so that helps quite a bit. But over the, I guess it's 11 years the team's existed, our funding model has changed wildly. first year, we were 100% funded by sponsors, Macquarie University, BAE Systems, a company that doesn't exist in Australia anymore called Altium. Some people might use their PCB tool, and National Instruments. And somewhere in the middle, we started doing Robo Camps. I guess it's the Robot Academy or the robotics classes that Andrew talked about. We started doing that sort of thing in 2012 as a summer camp. And that was just another funding scheme back then. But it exploded, and maybe by 2016, 2017, we were in a $100,000 plus budget through that outlet alone. And then circumstances change. Maybe we'll get into this later about how things change. But today the Robo Camps don't bring us nearly that much money, and I'll say we have a much more balanced funding approach, where we have a little bit of student, a little cost to the students coming in. And maybe we could talk about this later, why we have a balanced approach. I think it's much healthier now. We have a little bit of money coming in from the students. We still have some sponsorships like from BAE and a couple other places. The university gives us a little bit of cash, and then we still do the Robo Camps on top of that, but it's much more balanced now.
Great. So we have some questions that are starting to come in. So another question that all of you might want to answer is, and I know Sam, you already answered this, but do any of you pay your mentors?
I'll go first on that one. Lyndall and I get a wage for when we're teaching some of these classes, not all of them, but we don't get paid to be mentors, no.
So I'll go next. So the way our pay works is we get paid for pre-season classes that we run, not all the hours, but most of them, and then parts of build season. Obviously, as you guys probably know, build season always goes on longer. The day goes longer than you'd expect. So the mentors make an agreement with the university that we'll get paid for X number of hours a day, and the rest of it's our volunteer time that we're happy to put in for the kids. So that's how ours works. So
in Tasmania, all our mentors are volunteers. Nobody gets paid. We do this for the love of it. We've been doing that for all 7 years through FLL, FTC, and now FRC. What I didn't mention is we do charge the students a small fee as well. I didn't mention that in the funding model. We do charge a small fee, roughly $100 per term that we run per student. It depends on the season and how many students we've got as to how that actually works out. But that's the only, there's nobody gets paid out of it in Tasmania.
And I guess for us, we're all volunteers as well, but interestingly enough, because we some of our volunteer / mentors have come through sponsors, the sponsor employers will sometimes do things like fund the mentors' travel to an overseas regional or to championship, or sort of encourage to not take time off, but take time away from work as, you know, to work with the team. So although nobody actually gets a paycheck to put hours in with the team, we found that employers who understand the mission of FIRST and get behind it will sometimes out with the travel costs.
Right. And I could probably also add in here, I think that there are some teams that their mentors do get paid. I think that some of the private schools in Sydney are paying their mentors a wage as well. So I think it's a blended model for whatever works in your particular situation. So I guess another question is, could each of you talk a little bit about how you develop a budget for the year? And if you have some sort of financial plan that you work to year in, year out?
I can start. I've only done 1 year's budget. So if you like, we were a rookie team. So we started off with working out some rough costs of materials, cost of transport, cost of accommodation, cost of flights of getting there, the cost of the ferry, printing shirts and all the advertising material that we were going to do. And that's basically how we came up with the budget. we just came up with a number that we needed to hit. We fortunately did hit that through plenty of sponsors. I noticed everybody's been naming some of the sponsors, so I better get a plug in for Sage Automation, who are our biggest sponsor. Everybody else has mentioned VAE Systems and all those. I better get Sage Automation a plug.
I guess when it comes to a budget, it's sort of, for us, it's a top-down, bottom-up kind of thing. We certainly look at what we think our is going to be. In the past, sometimes from time to time, when we have a pet project that we want to do with outreach, we may go and try to figure out how to fund that separately or on top of in the existing funding that we have. But it's not sort of the top-down approach. We have this much money. How are we going to spend it? But I think we've done a lot of things from the bottom up, which is what sorts of team values or are we passionate about that we want to have our program reflect? And this is a really good example of that. For us, we didn't have a student fee for a really long time, and then we sort of got the notion that parents and to some extent the weren't valuing being on the team, so we instituted a student fee, and that became a source of income. Yeah, so the budget sort of is a top down, bottom up kind of thing.
So the way we do our budget is we start by looking at what we spent last year, what we planned on spending last year, and working from the previous years. Typically, all our airfare costs we do pass on to the students because it's quite a lot of flights and accommodation that we have to end up covering. And we do have the students pay a little bit of money to join the team. I think it's about $350 to join the team, plus airfare if they do want to go to Sydney. But typically we look at what tools we need to purchase for the year, especially the big tools like a new drop saw or whatever we need. As I said earlier, we work out how many hours the mentors are going to get a week to work out how much we need to spend in that sense. So Curtin used to be 2 teams. We've cut down to 1 team now. So in the past, it used to be how much are we spending on the robots and how much are we spending over both robots. So as well as the obviously robot transportation that we're going to end up having to pay for. But yeah.
So for us, we approach things a little bit differently. So yeah, we do have the information of what was like the previous year and what we can expect. We can drive to Sydney to compete. So the only airfares we have to worry about are for Houston. So we sort of draw a line and say the budget is for up to this point. Anything after the regionals, we'll deal with that as a separate issue. So what we do is during the year, money raised from the after school programs and the school holiday programs is put into an account. And then we say, this is what we have to spend this year. And when we get into building or designing things, each of our mechanical or programming or whatever team is using the budget has to pitch a case of this is worth this much, it's worth doing. So the kids don't have control over the budget, but they've got to be aware of what it's going to cost to do what they're doing. And when the money's gone, it's gone. Now we do have, like I said, with sponsors give us some money, but a lot of that has to be used a certain way. Like one of our sponsors, Total Aerospace Solutions, will give us some money, but on condition that we use it to do something that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So his requirement is we've got to try something new with it. We've got to reach somewhere new, and can't use it for just normal status quo competition or getting to Houston or something like that. It's got to expand us in some way. Yeah, so that's kind of how we run. We've also sponsored by IronCAD, who gives us some money. American dollars are always good for stuff like that. They're a bit more open-ended how we use it, but that's sort of become our emergency fund if we've got to buy stuff from Andy Mark or something in America and not have to suffer the exchange rate.
So do any of your teams go after grants? And if you do, sort of how do you find them and how do you put together the grant submissions?
So I'll go first. So we've applied for a few grants, gotten some and not others. We are on legal paper, We're a business partnership between the lead mentors, so we're not a not-for-profit. So that greatly restricts what we are able to apply for. Sometimes we have joined forces with a not-for-profit like Rotary, and we've applied for grants about areas they're passionate about. So a while back, we got a grant to do a girls only STEM program. The girls could join it for free. It lasted 2 years. We've also got accredited as a creative kid provider. So it's not exactly grants, but we've got a lot of kids being able to use the creative kid vouchers to do the things we offer. We keep an eye out for Service New South Wales government grants, things like that. We've got a lot of parents who are out there thinking that, hey, if I can find a grant that's going to help out, and yeah. So between watching the grant sites, having very keen parents, and working through government programs, that's how we do things.
So I guess I have a quick question. When you say watching the grant sites, where would a new team find those sort of sites?
Google. Government. So if I look for STEM grants in New South Wales, there's a few come up. Education.gov.au is the last one we got.
There's
and
another one. There's another one, grants.gov.au, I think.
Yeah, and business.gov.au. So there's usually a bunch of, if you just Google STEM grants New South Wales for us, you can usually find the big ones. Or somebody on Facebook posts about it, then we go hunting for it ourselves.
I guess I'll go next. I guess the fact that there's more than one FRC team is a testimony to grants. We got a grant from New South Wales government back in like 2011, and we were supposed to start 5 new FRC teams, and we couldn't do it for whatever reason. So we put the money aside till we figured out how to start FRC teams, and it turned out that the money was better used doing the microbank thing. So the fact that Australian teams can have Macquarie Uni pay their rego for them and then get billed back later is a testimony to the New South Wales government's, I think it was $50,000 they gave us. It was the seed for the microbank, and now that just gets recycled every year to the tune of about $200,000. Just like Andrew, we have trouble getting grants because we're underneath the university umbrella. If they weren't doing our accounting, we could truly be a community team. So there's just some grants that we don't qualify for because we're part of a university, or on paper we're part of a university. On the other hand, there are some grants that we qualify for that have to do with STEM outreach that are targeted for educational institutions. To some extent, Robo Camps for us got going because of a Google grant for, oh gosh, I forgot what the name of the program was. Had a crazy acronym. But anyway, we started off by training teachers on how to do FLL and FTC, and that just sort of morphed into Robo Camps. But the last few years, the kids have tried to find a couple of grants to apply for. And we've actually, again, this is another thing. What are your goals? Top down, bottom up kind of budget development. We've decided that that would be great if the kids learned how to find grants and write the applications themselves. So we've used it as a sort of a learning tool to get kids acclimated to the budget and grant writing and what it takes to run an FRC team. Notably, we haven't been successful, but it's a learning vehicle that we use for the kids now.
Yeah, and I think the grant you were talking about was CS for HS.
Yes, that's it. Computer science for high schools.
Yes, and we appear to have lost John, so hopefully he'll come back.
Okay.
I don't think we actually apply for any grants as far as I'm aware, because it is quite hard under the university banner as well. So.
Okay. So another question that some people have are, since we don't need to build a new robot, how does that change your funding plans for 2021, or does it? You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. For us, the COVID situation has put a real crimp in our normal fundraising. So we've got less money to have anyway. So we're sort of going about and being a lot wiser with what we spend. and pretty much keeping the same pattern. The kids are aware money is reduced, and they've got any improvements they want to make or things they want to do have to be done in the most cost-effective way possible. So they're on that, and we've got a few quite capable recycling and how shall we say, mad science endeavors underway at the moment. We're just managing what we've got, making sure we can meet our obligations and compete. And beyond that, anything beyond that's a bonus. And we are keeping up with the sponsors that we do have, because they'll make the difference between us being able to just go out and compete or actually go out and let the kids build everything they're dreaming about.
Want to go ahead, Sam?
Yep. So we've assumed we have to submit our budget to the university each year. If in typical university fashion, if you don't ask for it and don't spend what you spent the last year, you're gonna not get it the next year anyway. So we've gone ahead and asked for our normal budget. So we've assumed that nothing really has changed in that sense of building a new robot, not building a new robot. In that sense, we did find, even though we couldn't run one of our Robo Academies, we found that the most recent one was super busy purely because lots of parents wanted their kids out of the house, I think. So yeah, that's what we found. So in fact, the last Robo Academy, we got like one of our most students we haven't in a while. So yeah.
Yes, that's interesting. We did something, I'll say related, not similar, but we haven't done our budget yet, quite honestly. And when it is time to do the budget, it'll definitely be from a top-down limitation. I don't know how many new programs will start this year or what programs will continue to fund. But the thing that we have had to sort of grapple with is for our Robo Camps, we weren't able to run them over the April school holiday. So it started a bunch of people thinking, how can we virtualize it? And given that everybody's getting used to Zoom meetings, how can we do Robo Camps over Zoom? And so the kids and some of the mentors have been working pretty hard coming up with a new curriculum that is totally virtual. The kids don't even have to have an FLL or EV3 set, and just leverages software that they can access the web browser to meet some of the same sorts of goals. So we've actually adapted our fundraising to reflect the current situation. We'll see. We don't know how successful it's going to be, but again, because this is first, and we take advantage of whatever opportunities we have, and we problem solve. So we're getting the kids to adapt and use it as an advantage, or use it as an opportunity to do something new and different.
Yeah, we've been doing the same thing. We've been running virtual classes while we haven't been able to meet in person, the after school and the school holiday ones. Our students need robots kits to do what we're doing. So we've been loaning out the kits we have that we normally use for classes. So yeah, we've been adapting.
Okay, so do any of you have any marketing material that you use for fundraising?
Ooh, so this is where we get some involvement sort of outside the immediate team. Our parents have stepped up and have started putting together some marketing material, mostly because they work in those areas. They're in marketing, or they do advertising, and so they've offered to help, and we've created some glossies and trying to get them to. I guess their enthusiasm is fantastic and their skills are over the top, but getting them to make sure the team's message is on point and that they use the team's marketing standard or branding standards has been more of the challenge. But yeah, so we'll see how that material goes. I know they started floating it around a little bit before all the coronavirus stuff started. But yeah, the short answer is yes.
So with ours, we have a sponsorship package that we send out, but that's dealt with my boss. So a lot of current sponsorship, we're not allowed to approach them at a team level because of other partnerships that the university might have. So typically my boss deals with all the sponsorship and the marketing in that sense, but the teams deal with a lot of our Robo Academy or social media platforms, just to get the word out there. But yeah.
So we've got pop-up banners we use from time to time. We'll do a little bit of advertising on like Parents Guide and things like that, but most of our foot traffic comes through word of mouth. We don't need and good old-fashioned social media.
Yeah, it also does bring up a point. So, Mike, you talked about the parents doing some things. Do other teams have parents helping out with fundraising as well?
Yes, most definitely. There's enthusiasm for things like the chocolate drives, or like I said, spotting grants, or, hey, this person is doing this. Would you like to take advantage of it? We got to help operate a color run a few years back for something like that. So that was our fundraising. Our kids were standing in a line shooting colored powder at people walking past. Most interesting way to fundraise.
We do a lot of sausage sizzles, which involves parents. We do any Bunnings opportunities we can come up. Obviously, they've been stopped for the time being. They're just starting back up in Tasmania, so we're waiting for our first opportunity to do a sausage sizzle. They can generate a reasonable amount of money. Because we're a community group, we actually became an incorporated body so that we could apply for grants in our own right, rather than having to go via a supporting incorporated body. So we have a committee that run the groups. So we've got FLL, FTC and FRC now. And so the committee run all that, and they run the majority of the fundraising, but then we involve parents and kids and everybody to get the name out there in the fundraising.
So I guess this next question is something that might be more of a discussion between all of you, which is, are there things that we could be doing as a community that would help many more teams? Sort of a 1 + 1 = 3 sort of situation. Any ideas there?
You're talking about collaboration.
Yeah.
I know something that we've floated around WA, not essentially, we haven't really gotten very far with it yet, is trying to, because obviously flights over to Sydney aren't cheap from WA. So we floated around getting a big sponsorship in terms of to sponsor flights for all the WA teams. So I think, I know the Armidale teams are really good with their Armidale robotics. They've gotten quite a lot of grants by collaborating with multiple teams to do so. But I think trying to hook up network of teams near you to see if you can get bigger and better grants that way could work.
We've actually done a collaboration we're actually pretty excited about. Team 7583, the Eleanor Embers, they're based in Wollongong like us. They wanted to do robotics classes as a fundraiser as well. And rather than have us compete for the same market, we sort of cooked up a scheme where they do Robo Club Junior. They're using WeDos to teach the under 8s, and we're using EV3s to teach the older. And we've actually cooked up a way that we're actually active in the same, we travel to locations to do this. So all over Illawarra and down to Nowra. And like a few of these locations, we've got the Embers coming, piggybacking with us, running, like using our registration system, running a separate class. And we're actually setting up a whole graduating system where the little kids get experience with the WeDos, get excited, have their fun, then move up to the big class and have even more fun that way. So that's worked. That's a very promising and it's actually worked very well for us.
So for FLL, we've started a hub and spoke type arrangement where, because we're the incorporated body and got the committee, if there's an area that want to start an FLL team but don't have the resourcing to be able to run an entire team with the committee and everything, they can come under our umbrella and become a Metal Minds team in another area. So we've now got there's the lawn system team, Houseman team, and a Deloraine team. No, not Deloraine. I'll get there in the end. A Latrobe team. So we've got three teams of Metal Minds dotted around Tasmania.
That's pretty cool.
For FLL, but I don't think we're going to get it for FTC or FRC, but I'm trying.
Okay. And I guess another quick question that's sort of a little bit more open-ended also is, we always talk about best practices and tricks and tips, especially for new teams. If you could only give a new team one piece of advice, what would it be when it comes to fundraising?
Well, for the new teams, there's always the Argosy grant, right? That's such low-hanging fruit. I hate to see any team not take advantage of that. It's a perennial thing. It's like, why would you not do that?
Yeah, I agree, Mike. That has got to be the best bit of advice we took, was to make sure that we got the rookie grants and make sure you do your lessons learned ready for next year. We're working through that right now to ensure that we get the follow-on funding for registration.
I'll
We
back
also-
that one too. We got it
What
too.
was that, Andrew?
I'll third that one. Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
When we started the Robots in the Outback program,
Yep.
teams write a sustainability plan. The things that we looked for was just that. How were they gonna, if we got them an Argosy grant and we came back and made up the difference between the Argosy grant and the rookie rego with the Robots in the Outback funding, how are they going to get themselves to year 3 and year 4? And I guess you're having trouble hearing me. Is that better?
A little bit.
Okay. I don't know what's wrong with my microphone tonight, so I apologize. But the teams used to have to write a sustainability plan, and what we were trying to get them to do was to build partnerships in their community. So I guess that would be the, outside the Argosy grant, which is sort of the low-hanging, obvious bit of fruit there. What partnerships do you want to build in your community to make your program sustainable? I mean, yes, it's about money, and I don't want to say money's easy to get, but long term, you need to build a stream of mentors. You need to have a continuous source of students. You want access to some extra facilities, whether it's a welding machine down at the auto repair shop or whatever. How do you build that partnership with funding as just one element of it? That would be my advice, to think about this in a broader, sustainable type topic.
My advice on that one would be also, speaking as a community team, watch the amount of effort you have to put in versus the reward. It's very easy to burn out chasing the little amounts. You want something sustainable and that doesn't hurt you getting not enough.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one, definitely. Work out what hours you're going to do and actually try and stick to that as close as possible, because you don't want to come out of the season going, I don't want to do that anymore. That was way too much effort.
Yeah, our first sausage sizzle was that way. It was a disaster. I think we had, like, I'm not kidding. We probably had about 30 person days put into one sausage sizzle, and I think we brought home like $350 or something. It was just totally stupid. And so we sort of learned real quickly what Andrew and Sam just talked about, was you got to balance the risk versus the reward kind of thing. You want to
and I'll also add on that one. Sometimes it's not just about fundraising. Like you might be at something that doesn't make you much money, but the opportunities you get to talk with people that might be sponsors are worth it.
Yeah. So what sort of free thing did you do, Andrew, for example?
We got Comic Gong. It's a comic convention.
Yeah.
The first year out, we were there as just, let's put on a show.
Yeah.
They started paying us to go there after that.
Oh, cool.
Apparently Lego robots and FRC stuff running about is a big crowd drawer. So it's not a huge amount, but it's real good. And we get a lot of foot traffic, and then people saying, oh, where can I learn this? And we can point them at the Robo clubs. We also did a few picnics and events for like the foster kids and things like that as well. So.
Yeah.
I guess if I could add my 2 cents in on this one, I really, really hate the word sponsor. While sponsor typically to me means someone who's going to give you money, probably not in exchange for much more than a logo on the back of your shirt. I much prefer the word partner. Partner implies it's a win-win for everybody, that they're getting something out of it and you're getting something out of it. And that something for you might be money. It might be that that sponsor has no money this year, but they've got this network that they can connect you to. And they're going to introduce you to 10 other potential partners that could come on board and bring, be it money or mentors or something else. And so a lot of times I think when we think of sponsors, we think of someone just giving us funds. And I don't think that is very sustainable, especially in today's world with the COVID situation going on. A lot of global giving is on hold. And if you don't have a partnership, which is more than someone just giving you money, then I think it's really hard to make that sustainable. So that's my 2 cents when I talk to new teams.
Our biggest sponsor doesn't actually give us a cent. TAFE New South Wales started sponsoring us. They've given us, they've got an old student union building that's been empty for 3 years. Before that, it was a childcare centre. And before that, it was an old reception hall. It was empty, dirty, no one was using it, and it is now an FRC workshop. Invaluable opportunity, no money whatsoever, but it's really made a huge difference to us.
We have another question that's come in on YouTube, which is, how do you encourage parents to be involved?
Is that in general or just with the fundraising?
I don't know. I'm guessing in general, but maybe in general and specifically.
Okay, so I guess like for us, it took us a long time to realize that the parents are a really valuable resource that that can play a key role in I'll say firming up the budget in some really interesting ways. One of them was we were spending an awful lot of money on travel. Not going back to the time when there wasn't a regional here, that was just stupid, insane how much it costs us to travel overseas. But since the time that we've had the regionals here, it fell to mentors on the team who were time poor to begin with because they were mentoring the FRC team in whatever expertise they were bringing, and they didn't have a lot of time left over to look into travel. We turned that over to a parent who that was their sole function for the team. And I don't want to say we cut our travel costs as a whole in half, but at least for our hotel and ground transportation, we wound up saving, I'll say, close to $15,000 or $20,000 in what it had cost us in previous years. Now, that this person did a good job, but it also tells you how much money you can waste when you have time poor people. So getting parents involved to do those things, whether it's real dollars like that, or it's just because your mentors are such a scarce resource for building the robot or writing a business plan on top of it. Your team can eventually save some real dollars or have some real impact by just getting these people who aren't as time poor as your mentors.
For us, we sort of, from the beginning, when we've just been doing some distanced recruiting days. Whenever we do recruits, where we do one of these days, we say, you need to have a parent with you. That's a sort of normal. You've got to have a parent come along with you. This is not something you do on your own. And from there on, they sort of get the idea that the parents are involved. We answer their questions as much as the kids do. We look for things they're enthusiastic about. And most of the time, starting from that, the culture becomes they want to do what they can do to help. Some can't, they're time poor. Others have, like I said, they've got opportunities or contacts that can help, but they're always welcome up to and including becoming a mentor themselves.
I guess the other thing that we do that you reminded me of is when we bring new students on the team, we talk to the parents about the opportunities that their kids will have. And we talk about what it takes to make those things real. And so the parents sometimes get a little hooked that way. But then every year we have a separate meeting for the parents about what we want to accomplish for the year and what we might need help with. And during the course of that discussion, we actually bring in some of the parents, I don't want to say of former members, but at least parents of team members who have got a lot out of the program. And they talk about the rewards and what it's meant for their kid. And then we have a little bit of a heart-to-heart about, gosh, you're talking about teenagers and how much time do we actually get to spend with our teenage kids, and wouldn't it be great? And we've actually had a few parents working side by side with their kids because they enjoy it as much, because it's their last opportunity before their kids go off to uni to do something with them, to get their hands dirty with their kids one more time.
Yeah, as a community group, we do the same. We encourage parents to stay throughout the workshop if they've got any skills that they want to utilise. We've had one of the parents was a machine shop operator. He ran a small machine shop business, so milling machines and things like that. So we'd take a group of kids to see his milling machine and be able to make components on his equipment with him. So yeah, we encourage the parents to get involved whenever and wherever they can. They don't have to be engineers or mechanics or anything like that. We've got an accountant. We've got people who can, other skills that are important to a team, not just building robots.
All right. Well, there don't appear to be any other questions coming in. Do any of you have any last words of wisdom on how to raise funds and make a team sustainable effectively?
Don't underestimate the power of goodwill and word of mouth. If enough kids, schools, parents see the value in what you're doing, that can actually be a very big boost. So wear uniforms, have signs, let people identify you, know you, and yeah, that can help a lot.
I guess I'd like to say, let's not have this discussion end with this video call. Everybody knows how to get a hold of all of us. If you have questions or you want to put a plan together, just get in touch, right? We are a community. We're all in this together. So we shouldn't let the conversation just end tonight.
I was going to say, if you train up your kids to appreciate the first message and really want to help out and give back, you end up with some really great mentors at the end of it who keep the team sustainable and running. That's pretty much how our teams run.
We did have one more question that came in. It says, do parents need blue cards? And I think blue cards are the youth protection.
Working with children.
Working
with children check. Youth protection in the US is what they would call it. Working with children check in New South Wales. I'm not sure what they call it in every state.
Yep.
Every state has slightly different requirements. First, would say that you need to follow the local law as to what's actually required. Having said that, I would highly encourage that you make anyone associated with your team, any adult, go through the appropriate working with children check. But I can't answer that from a legal point of view because I just don't know what the specific rules are in Queensland.
Our rule is if you're a mentor, you got a working with children check.
Yeah. Well, even some of our students turn 18 because of the weird age gap, and we make anyone over 18 get a working with children. So.
Yeah, I think that most teams do that for parents. The question here was specifically, or do that for mentors. The question that came in here was specifically about parents.
If they're going to be with us for an extended period, yeah. So if they're going to be a house parent in Houston, or they're going to be hanging around a lot, then yeah.
I would just turn it around and say, if they're working with children, they need the blue card or whatever it is. If they're not working with children, they don't. Doesn't matter whether they're a parent or not.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Anything else from any of you from our esteemed panel? All right. Well, look, thank you all so much. Sam, I hope that things go well out in Perth. I hope you stay warm, even though it sounds like it's warmer than the rest of the country. Andrew, thank you. As usual, you have provided great insights. John, I'm a little jealous you had some snow. Wishing you guys well down in Tasmania. Mike, you're about 12 feet away from me, so I'll see you soon. And as always, I want to say thank you not only to the people on the call, but thank you to Project Bucephalus, because they are always behind the scenes making this happen, making sure that all the technical details are there, monitoring the chat, etc. So thank you to 5985. If there's nothing else, then thank you all, and we'll see you all next week.
I
So what were the numbers?